think this is on.
It's a great way to start.
I don't know. Okay, Instagram, you may or may not be seeing us. Facebook is. Hello, good morning, happy Friday.
And
welcome,
Halloween.
And Halloween. My name, welcome to another edition of PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Jason London. I am lead faculty with the Endurance Athlete Division for the Institute for Clinical Excellence. Teach both the Injured Runner Live, Injured Runner Online, and Rehabilitation of the Injured Cyclist. And I am very excited today to have Nikki Kimball with us. So Nikki is a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, and quite accomplished ultra runner and just endurance athlete in general. So she has won probably just about every ultra race that you can do.
One of them, yeah.
One of them,
if they're on trails, yeah.
Yeah, if they're on trails. And then won several of them several times.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to have you brag a little bit, Nikki, I'll have you go ahead and just kind of list off some of your major accomplishments as a runner, because now you're a coach and a stellar PT. Been a PT all along.
Yes, and I coach, or I PT and coach runners, because runners are awesome and we have weird things.
We do have weird things.
And we need more evidence. And there's lots of great reasons to treat runners.
Yeah.
But yes, I was a ultramarathon runner for 20 years, 17 of those years professional for different teams. And ultra runner of North America 3 times, won Western States 3 times. All 10 times that I started, I was in the top 10, which no one else has done, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, and and I've gotten to race around the world, which has been amazing. And then and been on. I guess I have 9 national championship medals or championship titles, and I've been on named to 11 national teams in mountain running, snowshoe running, and ultra running. So
Nikki's pretty awesome.
So that's my stuff.
As a runner, but more importantly, she's an awesome person, and a really good PT now as well. So I really am happy to have her as a friend and a colleague. And what we wanted to talk today about was the masters athlete as a runner, and probably more importantly, endurance runners. So if you look it up on Wikipedia, or look up, what a master's athlete is. It's anyone over the age of 35, which, there's a lot of people in their mid to late 30s who are still winning national championships, winning Olympic medals and everything like that. So to me, at least when I'm thinking about my patient population as master's athletes, I'm thinking a little bit further down the road than 35. I don't know what
as well. In a lot of running races, 40 is the cutoff, but still, things change, and it's and just like our natural individuality, people age at different rates. And people in running specifically, people who start later in life tend to be stronger in their they may be very fast in their 40s. They may have their best times in their 40s. Whereas somebody who's been racing since they were 20 is probably not going to be that person. And I would love to cite some study on that, but there just isn't one. But things change a lot. And I think, I think 45 is probably a good general time to think of, real changes in your bodies that make you a master's.
Great. I am 45. Alan thinks I'm 50, but I am 45. So maybe this gray hair makes him think that I'm 50. But I can definitely attest. Just as I'm really I'm definitely a recreational athlete. But for me, once I was kind of getting into my 40s is when I noticed that I definitely needed some more recovery time, and those fast twitch muscles for me, I think maybe started to go downhill a little bit without working at it, which I think is another point with, athletes, but masters athletes is having to maybe put a little bit more time and energy into the things outside of running to allow you to running. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And having raced ultramarathons since the 1990s and being in a cohort of people, a very dwindling cohort of people who were racing in the 90s, what I'm seeing with us is that we can have long careers, but really, I think those of us who've had the longest careers, even through our life pre-masters, might have been skiers or something in the winter, weren't full-time runners. But then the other thing is, if we want to thrive in athletics in our 40s and 50s, a lot of our training is done on bikes and swimming and water running. If we, really want to maximize our running competitive lifespan.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a really good point. I've heard you kind of mention before where, I know approximately how many miles you have on your legs as a runner, but kind of thinking that there's basically a threshold for that, right? I mean,
yeah, and I think the threshold's going to be different for every body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like, some cars can drive 400,000 miles and others are dead at 150. And I think humans are the same, and we just have to, if we want to maximize how long we can run, we may make certain decisions that
Right.
help us to maximize that. Yeah. And I think when I was in school in the 90s and even into the 2000 aughts, there was this sort of idea that running was bad for you.
Right.
And I'm glad that most evidence has shown that to be not correct. and that's fantastic. But now we are seeing people really pushing the boundaries of running, like going out and running expeditions that are 300 miles long. Yeah. And so we know running's not bad for you. And I don't think ultra running is bad for you. I just think you have to pay the price of governing your body correctly in order to do it safely. And that means doing your strength work, getting in the gym and lifting some weights, and doing lots of core work. And, if you have an injury as a master's athlete, you really have to change your training. You can't, in my 30s, and most athletes, they can get away with getting back to running a little bit too early after an injury. Mm-hmm. And you just can't get away with that kind of stuff when you're masters.
Yeah. So I think a couple of really good points, that we've talked about so far is, one, the importance of cross training and not just getting your cardiovascular endurance through running, particularly as you're a master's athlete, and that will really increase your longevity as an athlete, at least your competitive longevity with that. And then two, everyone is going to have a little bit of a different capacity in terms of what they can handle, regardless of their age. So we really do need to individualize their treatment as well as the advice we're giving them as PTs or as coaches for how they go about their training. And, there's a really large meta-analysis that came out just a couple weeks ago with somewhat disappointing results, where it was looking at all these training variables and, looking at the 10% rule, acute to chronic workload ratio, and, how does that go into the development of a running-related injury? And the answer was, really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Seems to be, which was really surprising. The authors were disappointed. It is just one study. But, here I've been teaching classes in to PTs as well as just educating runners for as long as I've been treating about, making sure we're not making training errors and trying to, adhere to the 10% rule, which is not increasing your weekly volume by more than 10% per week, or getting more specific with the acute to chronic workload ratio. And what the study shows is that there's too much variability going into training, that it can't just be volume based. And like you said, there's, humans are different. And so everyone's different. So it doesn't mean that we throw all of that advice and experience as coaches or PTs with giving that advice out the door just because of the study. It just means we need to individualize it more. And with educating the patient on those principles, but then also saying, well, listen to your body.
Yeah.
That's probably the number one.
Yeah.
Is, running through a little bit of soreness is probably okay. But once it starts becoming painful, or you start becoming a little bit worried about that, that's the time to pump the brakes a little bit, maybe stop running, get on to another form of cardio, and then contact your coach or contact your PT just for some advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really good. And I think, that study sort of illustrates the lack of evidence we really have. I mean, and that's and we only are going to get stronger and better at our knowledge base.
Right.
So now what we have to use is the evidence that exists and our experience. And I think experience becomes increasingly important in areas where we don't have the evidence.
Absolutely.
And I work a lot in my coaching, I prefer to coach masters athletes. And a lot of that comes from the fact that even with the world-class running knowledge and background I have, even with a graduate degree in physical therapy, I could not have coached masters athletes in my 30s and done it well. And that's with all that knowledge. Like, I didn't realize the feel of needing more recovery and what that really meant. And you govern your body throughout your life, and people who govern their bodies best are going to be the best athletes and the most resilient athletes. But but it changes, and so how you govern your life, you govern your body at 35 isn't how you do at 45 or 50 or 55. And I find the masters athletes are just really amazing for physical therapy, amazing to do, to work with physical therapy wise and coaching wise. And there are a few things that make me love that so much. And I think this is demonstrated in the management of the older athlete course, is that within healthcare, we have this big loss of treating masters athletes. And now I'm thinking more veteran athletes, like 60s, 70s. We're treating them as old people and not treating them as athletes, because we're still athletes, and we're still athletes when we're in our 80s if what we're doing is athletic. And so I think there's this just huge opportunity to reframe masters, and particularly veterans athletes, and give them good knowledge, not the just stop running stuff that they get. We're like, okay, well, we're going to find a way to make this run work, and that run might include a lot of walking. That run might include biking up to a really cool trail, taking your run and biking back. We just have to be creative, and we know a lot about physiology. We know a lot about biomechanics. We just need to put that together with the fact that we have an aging population of athletes.
Absolutely. And that's such a great point. I can't remember if Dustin or Alex brought it up in the Masters or in the Modern Management of the Older Adult course that we hosted a few weeks ago. But I thought that was such a good point, is like really making sure that we're not just viewing the athlete that comes through the door as an older adult, but as an older adult who is an athlete. And one of them had a story of, they're treating a patient, and their primary care physician said, well, now that you're 80, you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do this. Exercises and activities that they had been doing their whole life. And then all of a sudden, just because of an age cutoff, they need to stop doing that, which is hugely detrimental to that person's health, and I'm sure psyche as well.
Right.
And it's just kind of another plug for looking at our patients as an individual and as a human, and what drives them, as well as, even if it's a patient who's not particularly an athlete, but we're wanting to get them there, you can still be very, very active and do incredibly hard and cool things as you age. And we're in Bozeman, so we're in a little bit of a bubble, and for me, it's inspiring all the time, because we're all aging, but I'm probably feeling it a little bit more than some of you. And to be out on the trails, or to be out, skiing, and having friends that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and who are doing the same things, and you're really not waiting all that much if you're at
Right.
different paces is truly inspiring. And so for those of you that aren't in a very active community with older adults, look, I mean, there's lots of examples if you just look on the internet to maybe help inspire your patients, or look at what, Dustin and Christina are doing with their gyms, and, older adults really getting after it and doing hard things that are hard things for people who aren't just an older adult, but people who are in their 20s too.
Right. Right.
Another thing you mentioned was recovery and the importance of recovery in a master's athlete. And I think we'll kind of end on that topic, on that importance of kind of realizing that, probably now, like talking more to the PTs of, okay, we have an older adult athlete or master's athlete as a runner in clinic who's dealing with a running related injury. How does our counsel change because of the age-related changes that are going on with that athlete, and how does that differ from if we're dealing with a collegiate cross-country runner, for example?
Right, and that's huge. Especially runners under 30, they're just bomber. I mean, as long as once you get them strong, I mean, sometimes they'll come in a collegiate athlete who's run super well, and then you realize that they have absolutely no hip strength because they can just go in a straight line. And so, yeah, those people need to recover until they're strong. But once they're strong, they're fine. And with a master's athlete, they are going to take more time. If they have an arthritic knee, that knee is going to show some swelling, and you really have to back off then. Or if they are, if they're not sleeping well, it's going to be a much bigger problem for that older athlete. So we really have to educate on that. Mm-hmm. And then we also have to reframe recovery. And we have people coming in who really must recover from some injury, who's maybe a 50-year-old comes in with something. And I think people have thought historically of recovery as, sitting on the couch eating bonbons, and that's not recovery. I think we reframe that as, okay, well, you can walk without pain. Well, guess what? You can get your heart rate up to a level 2, no problem walking. You can go, if you need to have a level 4 workout, you can just find a hill and go up it and walk, or walk with ski poles. So there are all the elements of recovery are really active recovery. It's making sure the person's still moving, keeping those joints lubricated, and not losing overall fitness. Because when a master's athlete sits on their tail for a week, they actually lose fitness. Yeah. Whereas, a 36-year-old, their body's just like, yeah, thanks for the week off, and they're fine. But we don't act that way anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think sometimes when you talk to recovery, regardless of the patient, they do think it's just becoming a couch potato, which is absolutely what we do not want to do. Maybe a day of if they've had, they've just gotten their running related injury and need a little time off. And just for a mental standpoint too, just to totally reset, but not much more than that.
No, not much.
And really, again, trying to leverage other modes of exercise so that it is an active recovery. And then another thing that you brought up, I think that is really important, is knowing that, with these masters athletes, they have, wear and tear on the body, and that's normal, but that does create some thought with having to, if their knee particularly has, some DJD underlying, it doesn't mean that they need to go out and get a total knee just because their knee swells up once with a run and they're, being limited by running for a short period of time. But we need to get that knee joint quiet first, so get that swelling down before we get them back to running.
And there's so much they can do while they're quieting that knee. I mean, with the rebuild of my lower leg, I discovered that being on a rowing machine with my left leg on the seat of the rowing machine next to me, I can still get a huge workout. Super high heart rate. I can do, I can do intervals, I can do distance, I can do whatever. And the leg's not doing anything, not putting any pressure on that knee, any pressure on that leg. Water running, another thing. that you can pretty much do through most. I think there's really, unless you have open wounds, there's not much stopping water running.
Yeah. Just, motion is lotion. So really trying to keep people moving is important. So great to have Nikki here on the PT on Ice show today. I am going way over the time that I normally do, and I do not want to, get the award for having the longest episode. I'll leave that to Justin to do that day in and day out. So we'll go ahead and end here. Thanks again so much. We talked about masters athletes as runners, particularly endurance runners, and kind of reframing what we think of it as a masters athlete, thinking more in the 40 range, 45 and older than 35 and older, and just the importance of looking at your patient as an individual in terms of their training and their treatment, and then just really making sure that we're allowing for a little bit more rest when someone's recovering, for active rest when someone's recovering from an injury as a masters athlete, and also when they're building into their strength training or more intense running workouts, also having a little bit more rest with that as well. So thanks, Nikki. We have a fun 5K we're doing tomorrow. What's your costume?
I think I'm Batman, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
It depends on the weather.
Yeah. I think Ingrid's going to be a witch. So I'm going to try to be one of the flying monkeys from The Wizard of Oz. That's like a good one.
Nice. That's fantastic.
So we'll see how that goes.
And we get to bring our dogs.
We get to bring our dogs.
If I'm Batman, my dog is Robin.
Yeah, I'll have to get little wings for my dogs as well. So thank you everyone for your attention today. Have a great weekend, a happy Halloween. Safety first, and I hope everyone gets outside and does something fun and active and enjoying time with friends and family. And for those of you who are more interested in learning about how to rehab running related injuries, we do have the last live running rehab of the injured runner coming up here in a few weeks in Georgia, and we do have a few seats left. Otherwise, we'll be having offerings in 2022 for that, as well as rehab of the injured runner online. Thanks again, Nikki.
Bye.
See ya. Okay.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.